The United States just attacked Venezuela's capital.
So they played rough, and I said, if they do that, we're going to hit them very hard.
Since the beginning of 2026, it feels like America is targeting a new country every week. First Venezuela, then the drumbeats of war with Iran, and now, somehow, Greenland has entered the conversation. The American media machine is in full war posturing mode, with viral reels showcasing military might, aircraft carriers cutting through ocean waves, and fighter jets screaming across foreign skies. But while we were all watching the fireworks display, something far more significant happened that barely made headlines. On January 4th, 2026, Janet Yellen, the former Treasury Secretary, stood before a conference of economists and said, "The preconditions for fiscal dominance are clearly strengthening. In simple terms, fiscal dominance is when a country's debt becomes so massive that the government can no longer make economic decisions based on what's good for the economy. Instead, every decision, every policy, every interest rate change becomes about one thing: keeping the debt under control. The debt starts making the decisions, not the policymakers." $35,000. That's the number giving nightmares to American economists right now. This is how much America's debt increases every single second. Every tick of the clock, another $35,000 added to the pile. That's $3 billion every single day. In 2026, America is projected to pay $1 trillion just in interest payments. Let me put that in perspective for you. The entire Medicare budget, healthcare for 65 million seniors, is around $900 billion. The American defense budget, the most powerful military machine in human history, is around $800 billion. America is now spending more money just to service its debt than it spends on anything else. And it gets worse. The debt is projected to reach 156% of GDP by 2055. For context, that's entering the territory where Britain lost its reserve currency status after World War II. Now here's where fiscal dominance becomes crystal clear. The Federal Reserve is trapped between two impossible choices. Option 1, raise interest rates to fight inflation and maintain the dollar's credibility. But if they do that, the interest payments become so massive that the government goes bankrupt. We literally cannot afford to pay the debt at higher rates. Option 2, cut interest rates to make the debt payments manageable. But lower rates mean printing more money, which triggers inflation. And inflation means your groceries cost more, your rent goes up, gas prices explode, leading to mass protests and economic chaos that destroys ordinary Americans' lives. Do you see the trap now? This is fiscal dominance in action. The Federal Reserve can't make the right economic decision anymore. The debt isn't just a number on a spreadsheet, it's now controlling every lever of American monetary policy. But America's debt trap isn't the only threat. The second biggest danger to the dollar is something called de-dollarization. And to understand why, we need to look back at what happened to Rome's denarius. The denarius was the reserve currency of the ancient world for over 500 years. Under Emperor Augustus, it was 98% pure silver, real money, real value. It's accepted everywhere. The denarius dominated because Rome's economy was the strongest, its military the most powerful, and its currency the most trustworthy. Merchants from Germania to India preferred denarii because they knew it would hold its value. Then came 64 AD. Emperor Nero faced catastrophe. The Great Fire destroyed half of Rome. Reconstruction costs were staggering, and the treasury was empty. Nero needed money, but he couldn't raise taxes without triggering revolt. So he made a fateful decision: reduce the silver content in the denarius from 98% to 93%. Just 5%. Surely nobody would notice, right? The Emperor Septimius Severus, 211 AD, faced multiple civil wars and needed to secure the loyalty of his legions. On his deathbed, he famously told his sons, "Enrich the soldiers and scorn all others," but the treasury was already strained. The solution? Severus cut the silver content to 50%, half silver, half copper. The soldiers got their pay raises, but the currency lost credibility. By Emperor Caracalla, 211 to 217 AD, more debasement was needed to fund military campaigns and pay bonuses to increasingly demanding legions. Each emperor faced the same trap. By 268 AD under Emperor Gallienus, the denarius contained just 5% silver, barely a coating. By 300 AD, it was 2% silver. The silver coin had become a lie. The result was predictable. Hyperinflation reached 15,000% during the 3rd century crisis. The currency that had once commanded respect across 3 continents became worthless. Trade partners stopped accepting it. People returned to barter. The monetary system collapsed. Now let's talk about America. In 1913, When the Federal Reserve was created, the dollar was backed by gold. You could exchange your dollars for actual gold on demand. The dollar had real tangible value. Then came August 15, 1971. President Nixon temporarily closed the gold window, severing the dollar's link to gold. Why? Because America was fighting the Vietnam War, funding the Great Society programs, and the Treasury couldn't cover it all. Just like Nero, just like Severus, Nixon faced the same choice: raise taxes and face political suicide, or cut the dollar loose from its anchor. Since 1913, the US dollar has lost over 98% of its purchasing power, the same trajectory as Rome's denarius. But America achieved it in just 113 years instead of 500. And just like Rome, America used currency debasement to fund its wars. Iraq, Afghanistan, the war on terror, trillions of dollars in military spending that couldn't be covered by tax revenue alone. So the Federal Reserve printed money, expanded the money supply, and diluted the dollar's value. And here's where de-dollarization becomes the killer blow. Just as Rome's trading partners eventually stopped accepting the debased denarius, the world is now starting to question the dollar. BRICS nations have already proposed a new currency system. China and Russia now settle 99% of their trade in yuan and rubles. The dollar has been completely cut out. Central banks worldwide are dumping dollars and stockpiling gold at record rates. The world is actively building the infrastructure for a post-dollar system. And this is where America's current behavior makes perfect sense. The removal of Maduro isn't about drugs or democracy. It's a resource grab. Venezuela sits on over 300 billion barrels of oil. Greenland holds massive reserves of rare earth minerals critical for modern technology. And Iran? Iran has both oil reserves and Strait of Hormuz, the strategic position to control the oil supply to the east. These aren't random military adventures. They're desperate attempts to seize control of resources that could delay the inevitable collapse of dollar dominance. Creating videos like this takes a lot of research and effort, and your likes are our only motivation. Please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell icon so you don't miss the next one. Next video will be about the latest Bitcoin situation and where it could be heading.